Good evening, everyone. Extra special guest tonight. We have the redheaded wonder from Florida. We have the woman who puts the brawn into Braunstein. And unfortunately, she is beset by the avian invasion. Harmony Ginger, thanks for coming back.
Hi. Thanks for having me back. I'm really excited that you asked me back actually, because I thought I was a little bit mean to you on the last stream. I didn't say that
It
before, but
happens.
I thought I was a little mean to
It
you.
happens.
I felt really bad about
No,
it.
no, I don't think you were mean. I mean,
Mm,
you said, well, first of all, there was nothing you said in particular that was mean.
right.
There was some unfortunate timing for me since I was just about to
Yeah,
start promoting a campaign.
yeah, I felt really bad about that. So I would like to apologize. I'm very sorry if
No,
I
there's nothing to
discouraged your
apologize
work in
for.
any way. Okay.
No, no. Well, actually, that's something I wanted to talk to you about
Oh,
because so you came on, it was a year-ish ago. And at that time, you had just really started doing 1-1 time.
yeah.
You're playing. And so, actually, before we start that, can you just give like a 30,000 foot short review of what exactly is Braunstein? What is 1-1 time?
You want me to go the rest of the stream? Because um, right. So basically what I was trying was I set up this new campaign I was running where every player uh made a god for the setting, and then we had kind of a Bronstein, which was a basically almost free form LARP style game that happened in rounds where each of them would submit orders secretly. And basically, they were molding the terrain, making their cities, basically sculpting like what their followers were, and basically fighting with each other in some senses. Um, yeah, and so they did that, and that happened over the course of about 8 hours or like 2 sessions. And after that, we started the campaign, which took place in 1-to-1 time, which basically that meant for each day in real life, it was a day of game time. So now, of course, 1-to-1 time isn't like some people think it's like if you go somewhere, if you go from point A to point B, then and it takes like a day in game. You have to like sit
Mhm.
quietly in your chair and wait a day. That's not what it is. Basically, what it was is you could cover as much time as you wanted in a session, and if you covered more than a week, then the characters would be like kind of frozen in time jail until the real time clock caught up with them and we'd play somewhere else. If we covered less than a week, then the characters would have downtime to catch up with the real time clock for next week. So basically, the world was moving at the same speed as our own world. That's basically what I tried. And it was kind of a contentious subject on Twitter like a year ago when I tried it.
Yeah.
Like there were only a few people doing it. And it was like they were kind of yelling about it, saying, you're playing D&D wrong if you don't do it this way. And it caused a lot of bad feelings. Some people really didn't like that. And I was just like, wait, but I want to try this though. And I tried it, and so far, and this is like a year on, it's been good. um I had a lot of players who were kind of trepidatious about it at first. They were like, maybe we don't really want to do this. What if we want to like not take that much time? Like what if we want to just do like flex time or pause time like we normally
Mhm.
do? Like why change this? I know I see Ice 543 in the chat. He is one of my players. He
Ah.
actually, and I hope you don't mind me calling you out, Ice, but he said that sounds really stupid, and I don't want to do that. And like I think now I'm not sure if he would agree to play without it now. I don't know. But basically, a lot of them have changed their mind about it after we've used it for a while. And yeah, it's been going on for a year now, and it's been a great campaign so far.
Uh, so yeah, one thing that really stuck with me to that conversation is uh, when I was making my campaign guide, I intentionally had gaps of time before certain world events would happen, right? And the my thinking was that the DM would, fill in that time with whatever they wanted. So it could be, some players make these elaborate backstories, like, all right, well, we'll, use that time for that, or various other things. And when I had planned out the Kickstarter campaign, I'd always thought like, well, I'm going to make a bunch of modules that, if you wanted, you could use in between those times. But when you were talking about that, it was like, oh, this makes so much more sense that yeah, people really would want to play in other parts of the world. So I have like an errata section in there, and with a little part called "So you want to play a Braunstein." So like how you would work that in with the main campaign guide, and which to me sounded like a really interesting idea. Depending on where you are on the railroad versus sandbox spectrum, like either way you go, it's fascinating to see what's happening in other parts of the world. So how did your players? Uh, you mentioned Ice was not a huge fan of that idea at first. How did they end up liking it?
I think at first they didn't. At first, like it was tough to kind of get in the groove of it at first because people were like, "Oh, we only have a certain amount of time in the session to do things now because time is going to go without us. We can't like sit around and tavern RP or anything." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, you can." And it kind of took them a little bit to kind of figure out how this worked. But really, once we realized, we can like go out and they can do whatever adventure they want, and then, we can even pause in the middle of the adventure and then finish it out the next week. And then, okay, that adventure took 4 days in game. So you guys have 10 days of downtime and it works just fine. And once we kind of got in the groove and everyone started to really comprehend how it worked, I think people liked it a lot more. Really, what it allowed like a fog of war for people to pursue different
Hmm.
things, and you have like we have a rogue currently who is trying to rob a rob a leader of a town who is has been actually captured and replaced by a shapeshifted Afridi. It's very complicated, but nobody else knows what this rogue is up to, right? And
Hmm.
well, they do now, but uh, Ice did. But anyway, most players don't know what this rogue is up to, so it's kind of fun to see like the results of the player's downtime come up in session. Um, because like they don't really discuss it sometimes. They just kind of tell me what they're doing and then we adjudicate it and it works. So it kind of allows players to really get up to stuff without everybody knowing. And that has definitely affected the sessions for sure.
Um, so if you're doing that kind of game, where so presumably you're on the same time period, right? Like, let's say you finished with the main party, the A party, on April 7, and you pick up with the B party. That is April 8, 2025, or is it, or are you experimenting with all sorts of different times?
No, no. So the world is going in on like one timeline. So basically, if we have a party in our city of Merchants Cross and they're doing an adventure, that adventure is going to take them 2 weeks. It's a week to travel there, a
Hmm.
week to
Hmm.
travel back, and so a little bit of time in the dungeon. So we might do the time in the dungeon, and okay, so we finish this in 1 week. So these guys are 2 weeks ahead. I'm using my hands a lot. I'm sorry. I'm like distracting myself with it. All right. So we finished the dungeon in 1 week, but it took them 2 weeks of time. So they're in time jail for a week, right? Because the world's got to catch up. So for the next week, we jump around to a group that we have in another city called Barzak, right? And
Hmm.
that group, it'll be on the same date, right? They have some downtime from last time. We can see what's going on with them. They might do a little adventure. They might I don't know what they're going to do, but we'll explore what's going on in that part of the world. And stuff that they do might affect the other group. We also have like a weekly newspaper that like says a lot of stuff that different groups are doing. But we actually have several groups in the world. We have like 5 or 6 groups in the world. It meets 4 times a week, but I'm not the DM of all of it. Like there are
Oh, okay.
multiple DMs. And we are coordinating and trying to figure out exactly how every group's actions affect each other. Like if one group, right now we have a situation right now where there is a pyramid and there was like a mummy lich in there, right? And this fighter, in like the greatest moment of the campaign so far, this fighter took down this lich just 1v1. He was rolling hot and no one thought he could do it. Everyone thought he was going to die and he should have died. He didn't die. So like he killed the lich, right? And then they destroy the phylactery and then they're afraid of traps in the dungeon because everybody's like low level, low health and
Mhm.
they're low on resources. They have to leave. So they decide to leave so they can get a rest in town. And then there's this pyramid with that's sitting there unlooted with some like really great stuff in there, right? So who's going
Yeah.
to be the one to get it? Is it going to be the same group or is there going to be another opportunist group? Well, I can tell you one thing, it's not going to be anyone that's too much of an opportunist because this thing has been sitting unlooted now for months and I don't know what's wrong with them. Um, but
I've been on both sides of that. Um, I I was in a game once where we had to like cleanse this temple. And so like we cleared it of all the enemies, and then for whatever reason we just never did the cleansing ceremony and we left. Uh, so it was a couple months later, I was like, hey, weren't we supposed to do something back then? And then I've got a group now in my test group. There's they were in the ethereal realm, which is the land of the dead in my world, and they found all this treasure in this tomb. So when they pop back into the real world, like all of it's gone, and they're like, "Oh, well, that sucks." And then they just went on. The thing is, they were in the ruins of that temple in the
oh,
real world, and then it was the full temple there, and it's like you didn't want to maybe like search, if they just kicked some dust around, I would have given this stuff
that's,
back.
that's so hard not to tell them. It's so hard not to say,
Ah,
"What are you doing, guys? Just search it. There's loot here."
I
I hate
know.
that. I'm so
But
sorry. I bet you had some great loot for it too.
yes, well, it's funny. They had a TPK in there, and unfortunately, it was a wizard who had Tensor's disc. So I don't know how they were going to drag all the coins out, because there was
Oh.
a lot. But so as the DM or a co-DM, is it an issue for you guys to prevent um, metagaming, since they know what's going on in other parts of the world, which might be vital to if you have a storyline, as in an official storyline, or in a sandbox game, people make their own storyline. So
So, in the type of campaign I run, where each player is responsible for inserting a certain amount of lore into the world, a certain amount of metagaming is sort of a necessary evil. It's kind of expected. Now, that said, my players have been fantastic about keeping that to a minimum and not using meta knowledge to make decisions. However, I kind of think that's unavoidable to a certain extent in the type of campaign that I run. However, there are so many groups, but I mean, we do have like 15 different players spread across 4 groups. Some of them come to 2. I think we have a couple people who are in 3 groups, which is crazy to me. I got one person in my game recently. He's like my newest player, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna play once a week and see how it goes." And he's in one game a week, and then he's like, "Okay, wait, do you have room in another game? Because like I want to be in a second." And now suddenly he's coming to 3 a week and wanting to come into the fourth. And I'm like, all right, look. So I mean, yeah, there's a certain amount of metagaming to answer the question, but like I think that's kind of up to the players to not do. Um, so but a certain amount of it is like unavoidable, but some of it is kind of impossible because they don't really know what other players are inserting a lot of times. Sometimes I don't actually know certain details about some areas of the world, and I'll have to ask some of the players. But
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and so one other thing that I've noticed you've been doing recently is um, player participation in creating the world. So I guess I don't know. To me, it sounded like the one time again, where it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. But the more I think about it, like in some ways, it sounds fantastic. But how do you manage that as a DM? Because I could, like, God help me, I'm running test groups for my campaign guide, and I can't tell you how many people will respond to an advertisement with like a 20-page backstory and stuff. So, like, how do you manage that? How do you make that work with, like, okay, I need you to build certain things in this world, but not too much.
Right. So each of the players kind of have an area in the world that they're responsible for. And some of them have certain concepts that they're responsible for as well. For example, the god of death was kind of instrumental in giving me guidelines on, how does resurrection work? How does are we doing death saves traditionally? Things like that. So they each have kind of different things that they're responsible for based on their domains, their chosen people, and where they are in the world. And I kind of tell them, like, basically, they can contribute as much or as little as they want, really. So there are some cities where if players go there, I will have one of the players run it because they know everything about it and they'll run everything. They don't even need to give me any information or lore. They can do it themselves and they become DM when we go there. However, like there are other cities like the players just like, look, I want to play as the god and make decisions as the god, but this is the general vibe I have for the city. The rest is all you. I don't care. So it kind of differs player to player. There are some players that have contributed like quite a lot to the lore, and some are who are just like more interested in being players, and that's okay. It doesn't all have to be equal.
Hmm, okay.
Um,
And like, I guess the question too would be how much moderation of their, like, hmm, I guess I say, do you give them sort of like base rules of like, okay, this is the kind of world that we're in, go nuts within these confines of these, or do they just get to go batshit nuts, and then like it's up to you to figure out like, okay, well, this is a little too much, but I like this idea, I like that idea.
So this was the first time I'd done anything like this. And I looked online and I could not find another person who had run a campaign like this. So, in the spirit of being experimental,
Hmm.
and because I'm not planning on releasing this setting, as like
Yeah.
a thing for anyone else. This is just for them. So, in the spirit of being experimental, I told them, just do whatever sounds cool to you. And if they
Mhm.
don't quite match up, we'll deal with that. So that's what they did. We ended up with some people who took it very, very seriously. We ended up with mountain dwarves who create kind of warforged robots, which was pretty serious. We ended up with
It's pretty cool.
gnomes based on ancient Mesopotamians, which was actually really cool. I really like the gnomes. And then we ended up with like chaotic spider people who sling spells everywhere and throw bodies at experimentation because they're obsessed with magic and science and they live like 6 years. So they understand they're worthless and they're like 50 bazillion of them. So, I mean, and that one was a little bit less serious, but also it was like not that bad. And so we kept all of those. But we had people whose ideas were everywhere, and some of them really fit together well. Um, some of them didn't. But kind of in the spirit of saying, I want to see what you guys come up with, and I'm not going to enforce anything. We're just going to go with it. Um, I just kind of let them do whatever. Now, next time, because I am planning a Godstein 2, I am planning a second campaign in this spirit. Next time, I think I am going to not necessarily enforce, but imply a fairly industrial setting and
Hmm.
see what they do with that. Next time, I'm going to have much tighter rules on it too, just based on demand from the players. I'm working on that right now. So, yeah.
It's interesting you say that. That's in my playtesting, which has been going on for too many years now. Um, I have found that players are not huge fans of rules, but they really, really like guidelines.
Yeah.
Um, like there's sort of a decision or creative paralysis if you don't give them a little bit of something to work with. But no one wants to feel railroaded, regardless of if they actually are or not.
No. I think my players are like into rules though. Like a lot of them really like rules. They were like, so for the Godstein portion, which was very free form this time, I didn't really know what I was doing. Now I've played a lot of 4X games. I've played Diplomacy, Twilight Imperium, Civilization style diplomacy games. So I think I'm going to like put in some more systems and make it about like civilization level next time, but that's kind of what they wanted. Yeah, so Ice is the one that created the spider people, by the way. He's in chat, so yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so now that you've sort of plumbed the depths of old school tabletop role playing games, especially in the D&D universe, to get flush out some of these ideas that were kind of forgotten for whatever reason. Um, do you see yourself either incorporating ideas or mechanics from other gaming systems,
yeah.
or could you see yourself switching over to another one for the mechanics?
Oh, okay. So switching systems is actually quite hard for me, and the reason is I w- I have several players who also want to run parts of the game, and so
Oh.
yeah, yeah. And we're being very experimental with the campaign structure as well as the beginnings of the campaign, the origin story and the kind of 4X strategy game that goes into the campaign. So we're being very experimental with that, which is requiring my players to learn a rule set there. And I need a rule set that more than one of them are capable of running. So that is what prevents me from going to AD&D or Axe. Is I have players who have real lives, who have kids, who don't want to read the 500-page Axe Judge's Journal. Now, I say this like I'm reading Axe right now and I love it, right? But I it's probably not compatible with what I'm trying to do because I need players who are able to run it on a consistent rule set. So
Hmm.
right now, we are actually just using the 2014 5e. It is possible that for the second campaign, we might switch to Shadow Dark. We haven't actually made that call
Ooh.
yet. I don't know. I'm kind of like iffy on it. Now, I do like Shadow Dark. The reason I was like if we swap systems, it will probably be to a more rules light system. Just and I say that as a fan of like that hurts my heart to say because I really like rules heavy systems. Like it hurts my heart, but the reason it would be to a rules light system is just because I want several of the players to be able to run parts of the game on a consistent rule set. Yeah. Now, as for
That makes a lot of
borrowing
sense.
rules from other systems, I borrow tables from other systems all the time. I think I'm probably going to incorporate something close to the Shadow Dark reps, not Shadow Dark, Shadow Run rep system
Ooh.
next time. I, uh, I've toyed with a lot of like rules from other systems that I might incorporate or might not. I haven't really nailed down the rule set for next time yet.
Yeah, that's well, in defense of 2014 5e,
Mhm.
I think it's a nice system to sort of like tack on other rule sets to. Um, so, if you want to pull like some mechanic from another game and plop it in, usually I find that it works fairly well. Like for my game, there's a part where your players get potentially control of armies and have all sorts of religious followers. So I pulled out the old chainmail rules and like spiffed it up a little bit, and it plops in just fine. And I can see for a lot of horror campaigns using something like Call of Cthulhu's insanity system, it's easy just to layer it right on top.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. Um, yeah. So like, and I'll say this, like I've said this before, but I'm definitely like a I like 5e 2014 5e. I don't really like the new one, but I like the
no.
2014 5e. It's like it's honestly it's and a lot of people disagree with this, and that's okay. But I I like running it because to me, of all the editions of D&D that I've played and run, it is the most approachable, that has enough like crunch behind it that it's not that it's not like so simple, right? um and I like having a fairly approachable system because like I said, I have 15 players, and some of them are quite busy people, so I don't like
Yeah.
making them put a lot of time into the game outside of the playtime.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out what I really didn't like about the 2024 5e. And that was basically what it is, um, I'm not going to say 2014 5e didn't have flaws and didn't have things that, maybe people would want to homebrew one way or the other. But it's pretty, people want to say it's like Critical Role and Stranger Things that made that edition so popular. And while I'm sure that helped, I think the ease at which new players can pick it up was really the high point of it. And you're right, it's not so basic that it's boring, but it's not. It doesn't go like 3.5 where
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah,
have
like
points in this or in that, or even 2e.
yeah.
I remember was just crazy.
Yep. And that's kind of why I like it better than 3, 5, and 4. Like I don't think it's a bad system, and I'm like tempted to stick with it just because so many of my players know it well enough to run it, and they're confident running it. So I don't know. Now I can tell you what I don't like about the 2024 5e, because see a lot to me they like when they switched editions here, they made a lot of like small mechanical improvements at the cost
Hmm.
of like large changes that completely change the game and toss out like a
Yeah.
thing I really love about it. And for example, like having all the classes start out with no subclass and getting them at level 3. Oh, I hate that. Like, what are you a cleric to at level 1? You don't know. You're just like a cleric, I guess. Who cares what
Yeah,
class? You know, it's
and
like
like this,
it's
the
lame.
same thing with Warlock. Like,
Mhm.
Warlock is like, I sold my soul for powers to do something. Like, who did you sell your soul to?
I don't
Was it
know.
was it like an online ad or something, or what?
See,
It makes no
Warlock's my
sense.
oh man, Warlock's my favorite class in 5e too. Um, but like I don't even like it as a base class. Man, like this is like a 5e thing, and I'm like getting like deep into 5e here, but so I really like warlocks in 5e because a lot of people think that warlocks are terrible because they're like the multi-classes are too powerful,
Hmm.
but like I like them best as a multi-class. Like I have a rule about multi-classing into warlock, which is you need a patron first. You
Yeah.
can't just put a level into it without finding a patron. There are patrons everywhere. You know, you'll probably meet something really powerful, and when you do, you have the opportunity to make a deal with it. And if you make a deal with it, then you're allowed to like put a level into warlock, but it's going to be that subclass. Now that is an intrinsic like nerf because you can't plan for what you're going to find. You can't like start making this build or something.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, if I were to make 5e, remake it from scratch, I think one of the things I would do is pull a 1e where there would be certain classes which are more like prestige classes, like
yes.
we might summon the specter of the dungeon delver here if we keep talking about this, but
Oh, I
like
totally agree.
paladin,
Yeah.
you have to have certain stats to be in paladin. You have to be the right alignment.
Yeah.
bard, you have to like go on this epic journey. Like to me, warlock shouldn't be a starting class. It should be
Yeah.
like you're a priest, you're this or that, and in order to get power, in order to do something, you have to sell your soul, basically.
Yeah. I totally agree. And that's like the big change I would make to 5e. And I kind of have because I
Yeah,
don't really let people just make warlocks. It's you gotta meet something cool. But sometimes it happens. And
yeah.
I know you put that, I saw you put that little chat on screen, Michael Dale telling me about pronouncing every H. I don't hear it, and it's just how I talk. And I swear, ever since that episode of Family Guy came out, and like, I don't know, like it was like the mid 2000s or something, where he's like whipped cream or whatever. I've been
Yeah,
getting so
yeah,
much. Can I swear on your show?
yeah. No one's
Okay,
watching.
I've been getting so much shit for that since like that episode of Family Guy came out because that's just how I talk. And I think that's right. I think you're supposed to say like which. That's correct. That is the correct WH sound. Um, pretty sure.
Could be. I don't know.
I
Uh, you, you'll start getting me to nerd out in the great linguistic shifts that have occurred in the English language.
wait. So you wait, do you know the answer to this? Is that is the correct pronunciation, right? Like
Uh,
cool whip?
well, I don't know,
Okay.
but I do know that. So, for example, the way we're speaking now is a lot like English was spoken back in the 1600s, and they had a huge shift. One was in the ways that vowels sounded, and because they had so many settlers come over here, our English didn't switch, but over there theirs did, and then they started doing things like dropping the H, so like and having like uh how would you say, like the R's sort of disappear, like the Boston ka pak, you know.
Yeah, the terminal R's. I know that switch
Yeah,
like yeah, but like I just I don't know. I don't think
but
like witch. That's like no, you say witch
which
or
is
like
where
cool whip.
which
No, it's cool whip,
cool.
right? Like a witch is
I
like
don't know. It's a good question.
yeah, I don't
Well,
know. Anyway,
which is which?
yeah, exactly.
Some
Um,
people will say that with differences, and I don't know. I I don't know if there's a correct way to pronounce anything anymore because different regions would say it different ways.
what about Braunstein? Sorry.
Braunstein?
Yeah.
How
So,
to say
so
it?
you're technically telling me that my pronunciation of Braunstein is as correct as anyone else's. Thank you. I appreciate the endorsement.
Yeah, I don't know why that's weird. Well, first of all, it's like a word of German origin, but it's kind of like become in English where it's like octopus. Like the plural is technically octopuses. It's
Yeah,
not octopi because we don't speak Latin. So
right.
it should be octopuses.
But whenever I say octopuses, somebody will always say, "You mean octopi?" Every
Uh,
time. But if I say octopi, nobody corrects me. I
that's
talk about
well,
octopuses a
that's
lot. They're like my favorites.
it, and that's how the British changed their pronunciation because they had like a fancy smancy upper class people who wanted to use like a French pronunciation because it sounds fancier. So that's why they started changing to like the posh British accent. And but octopus is an English word,
Hmm.
so es.
Yeah, that's how I
That's the
say
rule.
it.
Phonics people.
I always get corrected when I say it that way. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It's like over time, I always grit my teeth when people say axed. I axed him this instead of I asked him that. It's
Yeah,
like it's a symptom of getting old. Um, you'll just get
I
older and
feel
older and more annoyed with younger people.
I'm already getting there, so no, I get that. I'm sorry, I got us way off topic asking about pronunciations.
Um, it's all right. No, it's an interesting thing. I am kind of curious. When you're doing your world, how much how would you say, like, extra stuff do you feel that you need to bring into your games? Like, do you feel like, oh well, I got this country, I better map it out, and like you have to have like a nice map as opposed to just like a little sketch just for yourself, or do you feel
Um,
like, oh, I have to, well, I got to save up for those dwarven forge models,
no,
or like battle
I
maps and
I make maps in Incarnate, which is pretty
oh
good
nice.
software. But like as far as battle maps go, sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. I don't know. I'm not too particular about those. I'll just like grab something. But like I make the world map in Incarnate, um,
Mhm.
which I think I like world maps. I think world maps are important. Now I know there was one guy who follows me on Twitter who's been talking about like working with no world map so the players are like discovering it as you go, and I love that idea.
Mhm.
I think it would be really cool, but it also won't work in like a Godstein game where players are playing as the gods. They're all going to know the world and you have multiple parties, so
That's true.
um
Oh, maybe
but
not.
yeah, I don't know if there's a way to make that work because I've kind of like thought about it. What if they were discovering the
uh,
world as they go? But if they're like molding the terrain and kind of making the world before we play in it, they're gonna know what the world map is. So yeah, but I definitely bring like the world map. I think that's really, really important. Now when we're playing on Discord, I like to use I use a music bot. I always have like atmospheric music because I like music.
Wait, did you
Hmm?
get it to work? Because my music
Yeah.
bot has died, and I haven't been able to get it to work for 6 months. Is
Oh,
is it working again?
what do you use?
Music bot.
I use Tempo, so
Oh,
I don't know.
okay. I'm
There's
gonna
a
have to
lot of
look into
different
that.
music bots out there, but
I have.
I use one that like all my players can add music to, and
Hmm.
I always like to have atmospheric music, or at least have it available for them to put it in if they're running. But basically, I don't know. Everybody, when they run the game, they have like a really different style of doing that, but we mostly work off the same rules, or we at least try to. Um, I've had to police loot once or twice, but
um, sorry. Getting back to your God
Mhm.
question for a second, because I put a lot of thought into like religion and
Ooh,
gaming.
okay.
If like in my game, I use like a sort of a Bronze Age style. If you take that tact with your gods, like back in the Bronze Age, each god was considered to. It's not like the Greek gods where each god is sort of like in charge of a an emotion or like a philosophical state of being. Back in the Bronze Age, it was this god controls this region, and it might be like this is a storm god or this or some other thing. But like as you go from city states to proto empires to empires, like they would build their gods out of clay, and like they would worship that, which is why in the Bible there's like don't worship idols because the idols were the actual gods. And then when your city would conquer another city, you would take their god and add it to your pantheon, which is why they had so many mismatched things. But if your players are the gods and they're only responsible for like a certain region, you could have regions on other side of the earth that they wouldn't know anything about.
It's very possible. There's probably a way to do it, but the problem is I like to have the gods where they are negotiating with each other because there's a constant back
Mm-hmm.
and forth between them and
Mm.
exchange. There's exchanges of, we use a resource called mana that they use to interfere in
Mm-hmm.
things with the game because they have the above the
Ooh.
table where they're playing as their gods, and then they
Uh-huh,
have their
uh-huh.
player characters at the table. Now, their gods can interact with the world in like limited capacities using a resource called mana. But like with that, they have two main resources. They have mana and they have their votes because each month they vote for a council leader. And that
Oh,
divine council leader gets to do something big in the world and gets a bunch of mana for it, right? And
that's pretty
so
cool.
those are their two resources. And so I like to have them to where they can speak to each other because above the table, they're trading resources with each other and like trading votes, and like some of them are able to do something that others can't. For example, there was one who was just cursed with lycanthropy, and he's like he can't play his character anymore because right now we have moon problems because there's like a full moon for 3 months because the god of the moon got the council seat, and he's like, all right, full moon forever, guys. So the lycanthropes are going absolutely wild. So we have a character that got lycanthropy, and there's only one god who can really cure curses because it's the god of the moon. So they had to work that out for her to cure him, or something like that. I'm not sure the exact deal being worked out, but there's a deal being worked out between them to cure a player character. So yeah, it kind of works like
Very
that.
cool.
But I have trouble seeing how it would work if the gods have limited knowledge of each other, if that makes sense, just because I want them to be able to
that's true.
negotiate.
Well, there's a game and a system for everyone, which is what I always say.
I really liked my diplomacy games.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very interesting way to play it. Almost like a lot of the early war games, but like on a god level with no actual fighting. You still need
Yeah.
to manipulate things to try to have influence and win.
Right. I mean, there's some pretty hard PvP going on at the table. And it's really above the table between the gods. It's like a 12v1 too. Like all the gods are just sick and tired of one god, and they're like, all right, we just gotta eliminate them. Um, and so everyone's sending armies after him. And I think people are like vying for the council seat, wanting to like gas the spiders or something. I don't know. But,
So Patty wants to know, when is HarmCon?
well, there are no current plans for a harm con because one, I don't want to harm anyone, and two, I absolutely suck at planning big events and I don't want to deal with it. However, if you want to meet me, I will be at DaveCon in like 3 weeks. And
Oh,
and I'm happy to hang out with people while I'm there. If you see
very
me, come
cool.
say hi. So I will absolutely be there. That's up in Minneapolis. So yeah, you should come meet me there. It'll be fun.
Um, so you said you don't want to harm anyone, even
Yeah.
the crows?
We're okay, we're working on this. So it's Tuesday, and normally there aren't any crows on Tuesdays. So I wasn't expecting to see them today, but I actually, like, right before the show, while it was still light outside, I heard
Hmm.
cawing like right outside my door, and I walked out, and Cronin the Barbarian was like right outside my door. He's this big crow, right? And
Yep.
he's outside looking up at me, cawing. And so I like gave him some peanuts, and I sat down and watched. I had to turn away from him because if I watch him, he gets nervous. He likes when I don't look at him. So I was like, sitting there while he's eating the peanuts. And then his girlfriend, Crody, like landed on about maybe 30 feet away. And it was so cute. He like excitedly hopped over to her. He like hop skipped over to her. And like they started
Hmm.
talking. He was talking like, it wasn't like caws. It was like, or whatever crows do, right? And they're like talking
Uh-huh.
to each other and they're going back and forth. And then he skipped back over to me, and she followed him then. So I am like 100% sure that I gave him food and he went over and told his girlfriend that I was safe. And so they both came over and ate peanuts. And it was the most positive interaction I have had with the crows so far. Um,
So then who's attacking you? Is it
Oh, it was
Cronan,
Cronin.
or is it
Yeah,
one of
it's
his?
Cronin.
Oh, is it?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
definitely Cronin. Cronin is a big crow, man. I thought he looks like I post pictures of Cronin and people are like, that's a raven. But like we don't have any ravens here. It's just a big crow. Um so but yeah, no, he's the one that's been swooping and attacking me. But I'm not sure why. So at first I thought I must have done something to offend him, but I think like maybe I think it might just like my hair, or it could be that
Could
their
be.
nest. which there are two crows. I'm sure there are two of them. I can recognize them at this point. But their nest is like up in like a tall tree, maybe 30 feet, 30, 40 feet away from my
Hmm.
house. So I like my house isn't even that close to it. But I think they're like making their nest and just like really aggressive. And so that could be it. I don't know. I think it's either that or my hair, but we're
Uh,
working on it. But because today I like seriously got him to like go skip over to his girlfriend and tell her that I was safe. And then they like both came back and it was really, really cute. And I was so happy.
yeah, I know crows do get they do get rather aggressive when they have eggs.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. Or maybe he has told her that you are the new food slave.
Do you know if like male or female crows are bigger? Because I assume because I there are two of them, so I
Usually
assume like
males, I
since they
think.
have a nest, okay. Because I was assuming that the big one was the male, which is why I named him Cronin the Barbarian. But like, and the smaller one is Crody. I didn't actually want to name her Crody, but like I was playing a game of Cosmic Encounter, and my friend said as part of a negotiation, I have to agree to name one of the crows Crody. So I and like I really, really needed that colony in the game, so I went with it.
Gotta do what you gotta
Um,
do.
yeah,
So I was wondering if you're still having crow problems, could you ask your buddy Elon Musk
my buddy Elon.
to could you ask him to help you out? I'm sure SpaceX could come up with something that could get 30 feet in
Man,
the air.
he commented one emote on a Twitter post, and now like everybody's like, you should talk to your buddy Elon or like. So are you pregnant yet, Harmony? That's the worst one. Like,
So,
that's the
well, I
worst
mean,
one.
you if you want today, you can just announce the marriage and people
No.
stop asking questions. No, no, oh, okay.
It's like people
So,
read into one emote. It's really funny.
was it actually Elon? Because I've been getting a
No,
lot of like fake
no,
Elon.
it was nope, it's I can give you the link. You can make that judgment for yourself. But yeah,
Recently,
no,
I've been
he's
getting a lot of a lot of people who are like, "Hello, good sir, I am Elon Musk, and I'm very lonely. I'd like to make friends with you."
I'll
It's-
send you the link and you can make the judgment for yourself. But yeah, no, it was him.
oh,
Which was crazy because I was just talking about Lord of the Rings, but of course, like I was trying to be cool about it. I was like, oh my god, hi. And people made fun of me for that. They're like, wow, Harmony, you're like the least smooth. What are you doing? And of course, like I like just try to be cool about it and send it to my dad and brother and just be like, look at this. Of course, they didn't believe it was really Elon Musk, but whatever. It's
you
fine.
should you should ask him. Hey, would you like to invest in a Braunstein game?
I should have asked him to join my D&D campaign. I think he'd
That
want
would have.
to. Yeah.
Uh, Way off topic. Have you ever seen? It's totally AI, but somebody made a D&D online campaign where it's like Joe Rogan is the DM, and he's playing with like Elon Musk, Samuel L. Jackson, Gordon Ramsay, and there were a couple other
I don't think
people.
I've seen that
But
one.
somebody wrote the whole thing out, and it's hilarious. They use like the AI voice and everything, but when you're watching it, it's like you're really watching someone's home game. It's hilarious. I can't remember the
I
name,
haven't
but highly
I haven't
recommend.
seen that one. I've seen like ones with like Donald Trump and Joe Biden and like Ben Shapiro DMing or something. That was wild, but that was a while back.
So Patty wants to know: did you figure out how one time works on Mars yet?
No, that's future Harmony's problem. Yeah, like I haven't thought more than like a couple days out yet. So maybe when he responds with like a second emote, I'll start taking that seriously. Um
There you go. Hey Elon, I can help develop games for your crews when they start going to Mars. You know,
I don't know. I
it,
Richard
oh,
Whitters was like joking that um Elon should make me the game czar when he's president. So, I think that was Richard. I
well,
can't remember.
here's the hope that he buys Hasbro, since it
Yeah.
looks like Hasbro's going out of business.
Is it
But
really? I haven't paid that much attention to it. What's happening? Like I know
oh,
their VTT is not doing well. I don't was it actually
yeah,
canceled?
hard to tell. They
Okay.
canceled 90% of the people working on it. But the thing for me is like I don't really understand if that means like they've developed it and it's like past the gold master. It's like, well, we don't need you suckers anymore. You just need a couple people to maintain it.
I
Or
mean,
if it means like, nobody wants it, so we're getting rid of it.
right.
Let's see, Matt Merle's came out as doing his own thing a few months ago. Chris
Yeah.
Perkins just left. The guy who was, I forget his title, but he was in a C-suite who was in charge of their digital strategy. He just left today.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I don't pay that much attention to WotC anymore. Um, I I know it wasn't doing too hot, and I know that I didn't look at the sales figures for D&D 2024. Were they below expectations, do you know, or was it like normal? Because I actually thought it would sell quite well, but I might have been very
mm,
wrong about it.
I
Which
think it's hard to say. I think that because everything just came out. Um,
is the monster manual even
there's
out yet?
Yeah, I think it came out last month. I haven't bought it
Mhm.
yet, but I think when that stuff just comes out, of course, there's going to be a certain number of people who want to look into it, and to want to play it, and I've got to play test it. Um, so you're going to have some sales, but I think the bigger question is like, by this summer, once everybody who really wants it already has their book, uh, is there going to be any more sales? And I don't know.
Yeah,
I think they're in a bad spot. Number one, number two, they've got a much bigger problem with they mined so much of the old IP, and some of those guides, Raylan Loft, Tomb of Annihilation. There were a lot of really fun campaign guides that came out earlier in the 2014 history, but they all work with the 2024. So why would you buy something new when you could get the older ones? You know?
that's
So
something I hadn't considered because I was thinking, a lot of the player base are
mhm,
people who have never really played an RPG before and got brought into it by Critical Role or Stranger Things.
mhm.
And I was always like kind of skeptical that they were going to be able to get that crowd to try a new system when they had something that was working already for them. Um,
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's one of the problems. I mean, just
mhm.
look at our buddy the Dungeon Delver. That guy hasn't switched editions in 50 years.
Yeah,
How are you going to get all these people who know 5e at least well enough to switch, especially to something that's almost the same thing?
right. Like,
If
so
it
I
were
mean, there
if it
were
were radically different, maybe.
There were a couple things I thought they were doing quite well.
Mhm.
Like for example, oh gosh, let me say something nice about WotC. Please don't leave. But for example, I thought their starter set having the goal of training as many players as
Yes.
possible to be a DM. I thought that was actually a really good
Yeah.
direction for a starter set. Um, and I think there was something else that I thought was actually quite
Um,
clever, but I can't remember what it was.
well, I
Um,
mean, I liked in the new DMG they have sample adventures, which
oh
they didn't
yeah.
have in 2014. So if you are a new DM, like here, try these out with your friends.
And, like, going back to Greyhawk instead of Forgotten Realms, I think was
Yeah.
probably a good direction. So I mean, I think that there are a couple things that seemed to be improvements, but, like, the thing is you don't need a new edition for either of those. Um,
Yeah.
so Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people I think had the question of like, why did there need to be a new edition? But I'm sure, I think that that's probably the same that was said for every single edition release. So, I mean, I guess that's nothing new. Um, I just, I think that they had like this huge popularity boom with like three things:
Mhm.
Stranger Things, Critical Role, and COVID. Got everybody playing D&D, and
Yeah.
that growth is just completely unsustainable, and I think they know it. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've had a couple problems. One is that it does seem like they wanted to switch to like an all digital platform and turn it into more of like a video game
yeah.
than a tabletop game. And those are just two different audiences. I mean, there's a lot of overlap in what people like to play, but two completely different um, genres of entertainment, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So that I don't know what they're gonna do. If it were, excuse me, if it were me, one thing I do is, okay, you've got people interested in tabletop gaming, a lot of people. Why not go with some of the other genres? Why not bring if they still own Gamma World, why not bring that back? And in the original Gamma World, the characters were supposed to be more or less transferable with D&D 1E. So why not have it where you could do that? They used to have Marvel superhero role playing game. Why not, like all these different genres that you could be doing, that if you maybe made them a little more interpretable, so you could take things from one and plop them into the other. I mean, to me, that would have been at least give people something different and new that we really haven't seen in 30 years or so.
That makes sense. Like, you kind of wonder how much they don't want to compete with themselves. Like they don't want to take people away from D&D to play something else. Might be, see, I don't know. I'm just spitballing right now. Um, but it may be a competition type thing, where they want to keep people playing the same game so that they can release like a new adventure book, and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
playing that game are going to buy the adventure book, and they don't want to promote something like like a Gamma World, because then they have to release it, because then they're afraid of not giving the 5e audience more to buy, but they're afraid of splitting the 5e audience into like two audiences, and then suddenly they're competing with themselves. Because I don't know that Gamma World, like I think Gamma World would appeal to actually more than the 5e audience, but I don't know if
Oh,
Wizard
for
sees it
sure.
that way.
Yeah, and I mean, they don't have a space game right now, and how could you not like future scientific games? Um, and so, oh, here's a question from Patty. So, yes, Patty, I have. I am testing it because of my campaign guide. I said it would be compatible with both, basically for marketing reasons, and now I have to make sure it actually is. So I did buy the book. Um, I think my take on it is in some ways they try to go more of a 3.5 way with it. Is it's sort of crunchier than the 2014 version. 2014 for me is a lot smoother. It runs a lot easier. They took away some weird things that were like fun. Like if you cast elemental, like you're summoning elementals, now you just get like bonus damage in that element type instead of actually having little fire or water friends. There's just a lot of stuff that didn't make sense to me without really correcting a lot of the bigger problems with 2014 5e, like the way bonus actions worked, and I still hate dark vision, things like that. Um, but if I'm playing a version, it's definitely going to be the 2014 version, which I consider the superior version, and maybe I'll just pluck out like the one or two things that I do like in 2025.
So
You know, we did have Paul Pumick say he prefers the monks more in 2024.
Okay. Yeah, I think like I don't actually I haven't read the new 2024 edition. I've read like bits and pieces of it, but I don't have a full idea of everything that's changed. My understanding is they've changed a lot of they've improved a lot of little things, but like for
Some,
me,
yeah,
like putting all the standardizing the classes is like a huge deal breaker. I don't like that at all.
yeah.
Like they'd have to make some massive improvements across the board to get that. But you mentioned Patty's question about Bob World Builder. Does system matter?
Mhm.
Um, and I
Ooh.
haven't seen Bob World Builder's video, so I don't know his argument. And you mentioned addressing Patty's question, so I just kind of wanted to say I don't know Bob World Builder's argument for that. And I kind of would like to avoid really addressing it and saying he's wrong before hearing his argument. However, my I might be like in the minority on this one, but I kind of am I'm kind of leaning I understand what he means. Like for me, the DM and players, the
Mhm.
group means a lot more to me than the system. Like I
Yeah.
can have fun with a good group and a bad system. I cannot have fun with a good system and a bad group. I do think system matters, but I think that system is like I think it goes group DM system in the order of like what adds to my
Mhm.
enjoyment. So I would definitely say it matters less than having a group and DM that understands the game and it knows what they're doing, if that makes sense. But I don't know
Yeah.
what World Builder's argument is.
I'm not sure either. I mean, my philosophy for anything is feels over everything. And before people accuse me of having pink hair and a nose ring, what I mean is you have to decide on what kind of a game you want to run first, and then everything that goes into that, be it the mechanics of the system, um, the lore and the world building, and even the people at your table. It has to go towards that. So, like, if you're doing like you want to try a serious horror campaign, um, you're going to have to modify rules of a game like D&D, which are more like generalist rules, and you have to get a little bit more specific to make it work. That you have to have your setting be horror, and you have to get the right people at the table who won't turn your Dracula adventure into Abbott and Costello meets Scooby-Doo at Transylvania Castle. So like once you figure out what kind of game you want to play, like everything has to work off of that, in my opinion. So there's definitely certain games which are going to function more. Um, and even like there was I keep track of some of Japanese players, and there's one like system that it's like Studio Ghibli type of characters and stuff, and it's very cool. And like, but you couldn't do that if you made it like extra deadly, and it wouldn't feel right. If it were super serious, it has to have like that whimsy of
So
a Studio Ghibli film.
no, that makes sense. I think you're onto something here because I think system matters in the sense that so I would say that system doesn't matter in the sense that I have to be playing a certain system to enjoy the game. I think I
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
enjoy the game with a system that's unrefined or
Yeah.
not great if I have a good group. However, I think system matters in the sense that I wouldn't want to run a living world kind of pseudo war game campaign using Call of Cthulhu, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to run a horror adventure, a horror investigation using AD&D, right?
Yep.
I would say that's where system matters. Like I think system needs to be appropriate for the type of game you're trying to run.
Exactly. And if it's not, then you have some homebrew, or you have to, I don't know, maybe you have to make a shadow dark to get things to work the way that you want. But what once you figure out what type of fun you want to have, like that's the hardest decision, and then you can select what works well mechanically and people wise. And but yeah, I agree with you. Like I'm in the Dungeon Delvers Friday night Gamma World 1 game. And like I prefer a game that has separate movement and action mechanics during combat. But I still love playing in the game. It's still a lot of fun, even though it's it's probably not the mechanics that I would want to run in a different type of game, but it works great.
Yeah, I actually also have the same problems with some systems. I hate combat mechanics that makes your movement conflict with your fighting. I hate having
Yeah,
to choose between them. Like that's like one little thing in a system that can actually really bother me. But it's like not that big of a deal. Like you can still have fun with it, you know?
of course. Yeah, because for me it's more about, who am I playing with? And that's what makes the game fun for me.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
but yeah, and like I said, it's the kind of game you want to play. If you have separate movement and action, it becomes a little bit more strategic. Oh, can I hide behind this rock and then do this thing? Whereas if like someone was telling me, I think it was on Reddit, and he's like, "Yeah, my combat rounds last 30 minutes." I was like, "Oh my god, that's
Oh.
crazy!" Like, have you considered, speeding that up? And
Yeah.
that's one thing that the movement or action does better. Like, it actually speeds the combat up quite a bit.
Yeah. I used to like try side initiative a lot using 5e and I had like problems with it, but I think it was because I had like a quarterbacky player and there
Hmm.
were some issues with the group, I think. But I've gone back to it recently and started just side initiative, like which I always do side initiative if I'm like in real life, but online sometimes I'll do individual initiative just because people talk over each other and stuff. But
Hmm.
and that's unavoidable. It's not a problem with my players. That's just a problem with the platform. Um,
Yeah.
but I've kind of gone back to using it, and so far it's been it's been working out pretty well. And we did a combat with like, oh gosh, there was like 30 orcs and 7 players the other day, and
Nice.
probably finished the whole combat in like 25 minutes, something like that. It was reasonable.
Very cool.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't normally have the problem of 5e combat or combat in general taking forever. So, but I usually
Yeah.
I get on people. I'm like, all right, what are you doing? Nothing. Okay,
Yeah.
you're taking the dodge action.
Yeah. I normally find it's more an issue of cracking the whip on players.
Yeah.
But Patty, so in older editions of D&D and Gamma World, uh, when it's your turn in combat, like if I say, okay, I want to run behind that rock and shoot at the guy. Well, on my turn, I could run behind the rock or shoot at the guy. So you could move or
Mhm.
you could take like an offensive action. Um,
Another one, yeah, another one that does that is like Pathfinder, because Pathfinder, you have like 3
oh,
actions on your turn. You have 3 actions,
hmm,
but you have to one of them can be like you have to use an action to move. So it's like, okay, you can attack twice and move, or you can move twice and attack, but you're directly competing. It's still incentivizing you to not move is the point. And so
yeah, and okay, that's fine,
yeah.
but you know, I just like to interact with the terrain and
Mhm.
get
Oh,
around
same.
people, flank them and whatnot. But
Yeah.
that is that. So you mentioned you might be moving to Shadow Dark. What is it about Shadow Dark that you like?
I like the spellcasting. The spellcasting system's awesome. Let's see. My favorite things about Shadow Dark, the spellcasting system is like the best. The random level ups I enjoy. I think some of my players aren't really sold on that. So I don't know if we'll be moving to Shadow Dark or not. It's like it's really up in the air right now. Um, but the spellcasting system is pretty cool. Apparently, it's close to the one in DCC. I didn't actually know this, but
Hmm.
basically, when you cast a spell, you have to make a check using your spellcasting modifier, and the difficulty of the check is, I think, 10 plus the level of the spell. I want to say I might be wrong on that, but I think that's correct. And then if you pass it, it's good. The spell goes off. If you fail it, you can't cast that spell anymore that day. Um,
Oh, nice.
so basically that's how it works instead of spell slots, which I really like. But also the fun thing about it is like you make that check with any spell you cast. So you can crit with a spell that maybe you wouldn't normally be able to crit with. Like the first time I played Shadow Dark, or the first time I ran Shadow Dark, one of my players, she was casting Mage Armor. I'm like, okay, roll your D20. And she's like, for Mage Armor? And I'm like, yeah, for Mage Armor. And she rolled it and she's like, I crit? I'm like, yeah, all right, let's read the spell. Oh, look, if you crit on this, you get some extra armor class. That's great. She's like, wait,
Nice.
what? You can do that? And she was like blown away by it, and it was cool. Yeah. So I actually really like the spellcasting system in Shadow Dark. I am I the torch mechanic is fine. Um, but that's my favorite thing, I think, is the spell casting. And the level ups are cool because you have that 2d6 chart for when you level up.
Hmm.
You get an ability, and some abilities are more common than others. And I don't love it at first glance, but why I think it's fun is you end up with like a system that's like, okay, so some priests are able to do this really rare thing, but only like 1 out of every 36. So you're not going to have like every priest having the same ability on level up. You have like
Yeah.
some abilities that are just really rare for classes, and I like that because that's one of the things I actually like best about AD&D is the psionics. I love the psionics in AD&D, like how rare they are, right? How you're not like building your character. In fact, like every character you're rolling a dice, and like some of them might be blessed with like these crazy rare abilities from the get-go, and you can't plan for that. It makes your character actually fairly special when it happens. So
Oh, that's interesting you say that. Yeah, when I was going on shows for my campaign guide, uh, people in the comments are like, "You're just trying to be Shadow Dark," and my question was, "What the hell, Shadow Dark?"
yeah.
So I started looking into it, and inevitably, everybody would say the torch thing. Torches only last 60 minutes. It's like, what? You would switch
Yeah.
systems for torches that last 60 minutes? Which actually, once I looked into it, is interesting. But you're the first person that I've heard actually give like reasoned arguments for other parts of the game.
Oh, really? Yeah, the torch mechanic isn't really what sold me on it. Like I'm iffy on real-time mechanics. I already like if my players are in a dungeon, I'll like roll uh every like 10 minutes or so to I'll roll like a d6, and on a one, I'll roll on the wandering monster table or something. So I already use
Hmm.
like some real time mechanics in my game, but so the torch thing was like whatever to me. It's not like that big of a selling point, but I really like the spellcasting system. The spellcasting was good.
Yeah,
I also, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, sorry. I was gonna say it if one of my if I were gonna change 5e, changes to the spellcasting would be some of it. I think it's very easy to use and easy to learn, but I think that there should be more variability in like, do the spells work? Does it crit? If it fails, like, does it blow up in your face or does it just fizzle out?
There actually is though. There is a mishap chart in
Yes,
the system.
yes.
Yeah.
But
I
I think I would make it mandatory as opposed to
Mhm.
like, you could use this too.
I mean, yeah, that's like I think that's how a lot of systems are. A lot of systems have like a bunch of optional rules to add with it,
Yeah,
but I mean, yeah, to me it's not a deal breaker. I enjoy I enjoy the spell casting in it. I enjoy the randomization charts at the end for
mhm,
like random potions, random magic items.
yeah.
I Dude, you know what my favorite thing on that chart was? I laughed so hard. I was like rolling one up, and I rolled I rolled it like there was this mask or something. This was like an item with random properties. It was a mask that was cursed so that it cured arachnophobia by making spiders invisible to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I thought that was a really clever one. But I mean, of course, like a single item on a chart isn't a selling point for a game. But
Yeah, yeah.
there yeah, there are things about the system I really like. It's easy to design for. Like there are only 4 base classes, but she also adds a bunch more in her expansions. A lot of people have homebrews of them. So, I mean, I think it's pretty good. Now, the reason I would maybe switch to that one is because it's easy for my players to learn, and I am worried about my players learning the system from a perspective of I want them to be able to run it, since I'm
Mhm.
not the only one that's going to run the campaign. So,
So do you think it might have staying power? So if we look at like the history of tabletop role playing games, like especially more recently, you had you had TSR not doing well, and then 3.5 was very well and popular. But during that period when it wasn't doing well, you had Castles and Crusades come out, and then when the 4.0 fiasco came, that's when Paizo came out with their Pathfinder. That people are dedicated to that. Now we're in a downward slide again with 2024 5e. Do you think Shadow Dark is the one that makes it out of this dip before
yeah.
whatever awesome
Um,
version of 6e comes?
I think there are 2 of them that will actually. I think that there are going to be 2 big ones from this because D&D is in kind of a slump, and I think there's
Hmm.
kind of it's splitting really. I think into the lower complexity and higher complexity systems. So I think
Yeah.
I think Shadow Dark and Axe are the 2 that
Interesting.
are going to have more staying power than the others. And I think they're both very quality systems. They're for different audiences. Um, I like them both. I said I've been reading Axe lately. I've kind of been switching between the core rules and the judge's journal, and there's a lot of stuff in there. It's a very crunchy game. Most of it's not actually that complex though. It's just there are a lot of different rules and systems. It's not like any of them are too hard for anyone, but I think that that's where the split's going to be. I think, and also it is one reason I quite like. I do quite like the 2014 5e because it is approachable with a medium amount of crunch. But yeah, I've heard somebody say that that Shadow Dark's kind of a spiritual successor to OD&D. I don't quite think that's true. I think it's kind of a fusion of OD&D and 5e, and kind of a refined version of that. Whereas Axe is more of a spiritual successor to AD&D. But yeah, I think that both of those are probably going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what exactly happens with Hasbro, and are they finally going to split up Magic the Gathering and D&D and sell off the tabletop role play game, or what they're going to do with it, and hopefully some plucky young company will get it and give us a fantastic 6e. But I don't want to keep you too long. I don't want you to get crow's feet from staying up too late. So,
Mm.
so anyone who is not sub to Harmony's channel, there is a link in the description to the video. Go check it out. Any news anywhere people should check you out?
Yeah, so I am on YouTube, Harmony_Ginger. On Twitter or X, I am at Ginger Blast, and on Substack, I am Harmony Ginger. I am hoping to. So my current goal right now is to release resources for DMs to help them run player-driven worlds. That's what I'm currently working on. We'll see how long until I get it done. I actually planned to release something back in January, but then I kind of turned it into a series of blog posts, and I'm working on some like refined version of that. But yeah, so you can find me in any of those 3 places. I think that's all the social media I have. Yeah, that's basically all my social media. But yeah, you can follow me there. I think most people in the chat are already following me. I recognize everybody, so I think
Well, you
we
never
know
know.
each other. Yeah.
You
But
never know.
thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciated that you invited me back.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and we'll definitely have to catch up after you get a little more results with your Godstein with the next campaign. I'm
Mhm.
curious to see how it goes.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
mhm.
Oh,
No,
sorry. Yes, J-Mac, I am
no,
going to be a special guest at DaveCon in Minneapolis. You can also find me there if you're in Minneapolis. Sorry, I didn't mean to
ugh,
interrupt you.
Minneapolis. No, that's all right. So if anyone is interested in seeing me, I will be playing Classic Gamma World over on the Dungeon Delvers channel Friday night at 9 we play. And apparently I will be on the T-Shirted Historians channel Saturday at
Hey,
5 p.m. Eastern, where we will presumably be talking about games. Something about
uh,
games. I'm not sure.
I love his
But
channel though.
yeah,
Like,
he's got a great show.
mhm. Nah, he's great. Have fun with that.
All right. Well, everyone, we will see.